have a spreadsheet pulled up right here, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and let you assess what movie it is we're talking about. A movie that ended up dominating the box office, at least for one weekend, and then coming out, well, not exactly doing all that good, but hey, still winning the second weekend. That was totally fine, and then it ended up dropping off and falling like a stone, but hey, it went from 4,200 theaters to 3,700 theaters, and now here it is, heading into its fourth weekend, one full month that's out there, 20 full days into its release. It has managed to attain $78 million. Now, if this was an indie movie, that wouldn't be that bad. Hell, getting all that exposure, that would be a pretty high-profile indie movie, but if this was something that cost like $15-20 million, $78 million return domestically, that's not bad. That would have ended up turning a profit. But unfortunately for everybody involved, this spreadsheet, this complete 20-day rundown isn't for an indie movie. It's for Snow White. $170 million heading into its fourth weekend. At this point in time, it's going to shed even more theaters. Don't know how many, because Disney, we know, has an iron grip on cinemas, and they're going to go ahead and, leave Snow White in as many theaters as possible before they can officially hand the baton off to the Thunderbolts, their next big release. But still, it's really looking like, because I can imagine that international number, like it'll cross $100 million, but domestically, I don't think that's going to happen. And we really, with $170 million, we are really looking like a sub $200 million movie right here. Unless, of course, they're as spiteful as they were with, Captain Black Falcon America Man, where they just eventually push it over the finish line so it can get close to that, mythical almost break-even number. Oh my God, guys, it did so well. Oh, take a look at that. Oh, we own the chuds. The movie only cost $180 million, right? And it made that $425 million. It broke even. Yeah, well, more on that tomorrow, because that'll be interesting as well, because the cope around the MCU is ridiculous, but the cope around Disney with Snow White here, it's a totally different animal. Mostly because they're just ignoring the existence of this, and they're just really trying to downplay this disaster, but we can't let them get away with this stuff. Okay, we got to hold them to their own standard, because this is also like a 300, and even the trades were coming out with this one like a $350 million production, which also lets me know that this is probably closer to $400 million. And when we eventually get those tax receipts out of the UK, yeah, we're gonna have that confirmation out there, and this thing is gonna be just an ungodly bomb of epic proportions. This is gonna make the Marvels, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania look like pocket change in comparison. But there's another standard, that Hollywood likes to uphold, at least when it comes to their activist actors out there, okay? For as much as they want to spread joy to the rest of the world, that they want to push their own progressive causes, there's something else, okay, that they seem to be pretty much in lockstep over. Okay, even though they, fly around the country in their private jets in order to promote, and we're talking about climate change and how everybody else needs to be doing their part. Well, Disney's Snow White produced higher carbon emissions than the latest Fast and Furious film, which, I beg your pardon? How does that even... Okay, so you got a franchise that's all about vehicles, that is all about high action, high octane explosions, and just at this point in time, like, the only thing that they're lacking is dinosaurs in space, for how totally and completely off the rails that movie series has got. Like, I look down at my media shelf, well, my several media shelves that are over there, and I see the original Fast and Furious. I have all the way up to 7. Everything after that, it's like, that shit just got way too pants on head stupid for me. Even 7 and 8. No, I do have 8. Okay, because, yeah, that's Fast and Furious. Yeah, but I seen 6 at home, and I went to the theaters to see 5. 5's the one where they go down to Brazil, and then they pull the bank vault down the road. Like, that was just already being like, oh, okay, bro, I see what we're doing here. This is way too stupid for me. But just harken back, because at least, of the films that I watched, outside of just that ludicrous visual of pulling a vault down the road in racing vehicles, I remember an awful lot about the original Fast and Furious and how that used to just simply be about street racing. And yeah, maybe that's just my childhood clouding that. But then again, I can also go back to that very formative period when I come to absorbing media the way that you do. You can also cast your mind back to seeing old Disney films, and you could throw Snow White in that category as how it used to be just a nice romp about a charming princess, finding dwarves in the forest and overthrowing a vain queen, and how that has evolved into a movie that is about a miserable socialist who got named by the weather that was going on at the time of her birth and saves the kingdom because she remembers the names of a bunch of guards. Oh, okay, cool. So that's what we're doing with that one. But this is such a wild headline, right? That a movie that is synonymous with wildlife and the forest ends up being more of a pollutant than the quintessential action series of the day. Interesting. Hilarious. Disney's remake of Snow White produced more carbon emissions than the recent Fast and Furious film, according to a report by progressive outlet The Guardian on Sunday, marking another negative headline for the poorly performing live-action film. According to analysis of over 250 Walt Disney movie sets, Snow White and The Little Mermaid produced more pollution than any other Disney film made in the UK since 2019. Wow! Latina Snow White and Black Little Mermaid are the most polluting films put out in the past 6 years. That's crazy. The environmental reports showed that combined Snow White and The Little Mermaid produced more pollutants than than the annual amount produced by Birmingham and Luton airports. Wow. More than airports. Okay, making a film. Okay, typing away on computers. This is basically what we have right here with those two projects. But each film generated more pollution than the annual totals of Blackpool Pleasure Beach and London's O2 Arena. The site claimed the emissions for the film shot in the UK are measured in tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, or TCO2e. Okay, source close to Disney disclosed last year that a total of about 2,600 TCO2e is right in line with what the emissions for a tentpole production should be, according to The Guardian. Oh, see, just because it ends up being what we expect it to be, that's why nobody should care about this stuff, okay? But the Little Mermaid nearly doubled that, producing 5,127 tons, while Snow White emitted an approximately 3,153 tons, about 62% more than the 2,600 ton benchmark. Holy crap, environmental concerns weren't the only setback the films faced. Yeah, exactly, and it's wild, right? Like, kind of wild how this was going to be, Disney's big spring tentpole film, but now they're trying to avoid it, and the movie that has utterly eclipsed it at the box office, a Minecraft movie, like, nobody's really talking about that one either, but people are still, coming to the theaters in droves, even though I'll be interested to see the second week drop off, because the weekday numbers, I don't really know what to make of them. They're a little bit uninspired, but because it ends up getting memed on TikTok with the stupid chicken jockey stuff, I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to play out, but we kind of know how Snow White is having a knock on, not just for Disney, but for little Miss Rachel as well. Like, she's taking the Hinduism, bro. She's getting hit hard on this one. It's big tough out here, but yeah. The fairy tale over for deflated-looking Rachel Zegler. Disney braces for $115 million loss over woke Snow White disaster, and she's to blame. Well, that's the way that the Daily Mail characterizes it, but $115 million? Bruh, Disney would go ahead and take that deal 9 times over, because they're not staring down the barrel of 115. They're looking closer to about 3 bills, bruh. Rachel Zegler looked somber as she was pictured out in New York City this week following the humiliating box office performance of her latest film, Snow White. Her latest, but not last. There's a new Hunger Games movie that's on the horizon. You think that she's going away? Like I said before, man, this isn't the end of her career. I can't wait for her to get announced in a Star Wars project. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if she's on her way to Star Wars Celebration right now to come out and say, you know what, here's the cast for Ahsoka Season 2, and playing Thrawn's new second-in-command, here's Rachel Zegler, and she's going to be Goomblop Plump. Or whenever Disney and Marvel comes around to announcing the cast of the X-Men, here's your Jubilee, guys. Wait for it. Fucking wait for it. Rachel, who played the titular character, in the so-called woke film. Woke, atrocious, poorly written, acted, produced, all of that stuff. Whatever you want to call it, man. Like, it's just a total abomination. Sported an oversized denim jacket over a blue shirt. Yeah, I don't really care, man. She just looked, totally and completely unimpressed, but what the fuck is with that on your forehead, bro? Like, just imagine, right? Like, how prominent she has been in the past few years at this point in time. Basically, anybody who knows just a modicum of the information just has a snippet of how insufferable Snow White has been in its development. They know who Rachel Zegler is, okay? They know. They might not know her name, but they know her antics, and they know what Disney's latest iteration of Snow White looks like. But imagine, just cast your mind into this scenario for a second. Imagine you have no idea who Snow White is. Imagine you just heard there's a brand new live action Snow White that's out there, okay? And you're immediately told that's Snow White. You would be thrown for such a loop, because that is supposed to be somebody who is playing a princess of striking beauty, a princess who has skin as white as the driven snow. You would probably have a similar look on your face that Ms. Zegler is sporting right there, just an unimpressed, it is what it is expression. But then again, the positioning of your eyes on your face would probably be a little bit more symmetrical, and you wouldn't look like you're on your way to the shift at Goodwill. So I would like to think that people watching this have a little bit more style and taste. Not to demean anybody who works at Goodwill, because you're actually contributing to society and you're going to turn more of a profit than Disney is going to make off the Snow White film. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.